In business today, three things to know. First, economy under the weather. Fed Chair Janet Yellen tells the U.S. Senate that ice and snow may be to blame for weak economic data, but the Fed is ready to act if not. Then, who's looking over your digital shoulder? The growing threat of cyber theft for businesses, consumers, and government. And sold out, how one company is dominating online ticket sales for the nation's biggest concerts. Arise Xchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmartz. Janet Yellen may have to add weather woman to her title as head of the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank. Thursday, Yellen told a Senate Banking Committee that, indeed, the weather may have weakened U.S. spending and economic activity. A good part of the eastern portion of the U.S. has been fighting its way through cold, ice, and snow for most of January and February. And many are blaming the weather on a series of poor reports. But with spring still just a few weeks away now, that does buy the Fed some time to adjust its policies if it needs to. Here's a little of what Yellen had to say.
Since my appearance before the House committee, a number of data releases have pointed to softer spending than many analysts had expected. Part of that softness may reflect adverse weather conditions, but at this point it's difficult to discern exactly how much. In the weeks and months ahead, my colleagues and I will be attentive to signals that indicate whether the recovery is progressing in line with our earlier expectations.
Certainly hedging a bit. Going forward, Yellen and the Fed governors remain cautiously optimistic that the economy will continue to expand.
My colleagues on the FOMC and I anticipate that economic activity and employment will expand at a moderate pace this year and next. The unemployment rate will continue to decline toward its longer-run sustainable level, and inflation will move back toward 2% over coming years.
The Fed chair reiterated the policy of continuing the tapering of its bond buying program with another $10 billion cut expected next month. Yellen also said low inflation provides the Fed room to maneuver towards the goal of full employment. So how did the markets react? Let's take a look at Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 73.92 to 16,272. The market started trading higher as Yellen spoke throughout the morning. The S&P 500 up 916 to 1854, and the Nasdaq up about 27 to 43.18. Taking a look at some of the stocks we're watching today. Royal Bank of Scotland, RBS, struggling to reclaim its standing by announcing a plan to cut costs by $8.3 billion over the next 4 years. The move comes after the 81% government-owned bank posted net losses that rose by nearly 50% to $15 billion. RBS closing down 73 cents to 11. Shares of retailer JCPenney soared after the company released its earnings report. For the fourth quarter, JCPenney reported net income of $35 million or 11 cents a share compared to a loss of $552 million or $2.51 a share last year. JCPenney closed up 25% to $7.48. And after releasing plans to build a new battery-making plant for its electric cars, Tesla shares were up by almost 4% in pre-market trading this morning, but the Tesla closed down during the day, down 46 cents to 252.54. Taking a look at commodities, gold up to 1331, and oil down 33 cents to 102.26. For more on the economy and Janet Yellen, we turn now to Lord Abbett senior economist Milton Ezrati. Milton, welcome back to Arise Xchange. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so Janet Yellen's, her testimony delayed a week because of the weather. So weather was obviously on the top of her mind. She, I think, kind of hedged a little bit with some economists saying weather is certainly to blame. She said it may be to blame.
Well, I mean, you could say it may be to blame or certainly to blame. It's certainly to blame in some areas. It slows down construction. It slows down retail sales. It slows down hiring. But it also adds in some areas. There's a lot of overtime, people who plow the roads. There's also a lot of sales of fuel because it's cold and people want to heat their homes. So it cuts two ways, mostly on the negative side. So she's wise to say it may.
What signal will we get if the weak data that has come in was not weather related? And then what does the Fed do?
Well, if we If we see that by the time we get to March, April, May, I don't know, I'm not a weatherman, I can't forecast that.
They're not doing such a hot job either.
No, they
so
aren't. But if we get to March, April, we know that we know spring will come. And when we're in spring, we will see if there's a rebound or if there's some extra strength. Some of these very disappointing numbers we've been getting, January, February, December too. If they go away, then we'll say it was the weather, or at least the bulk of it was the weather. If not, the Fed's going to have to act.
Okay. Series of economic news again today, a little bit downbeat. Jobless claims were up. Durable goods orders down. What do you make of those numbers?
Well, I think that I was a little surprised with how severe the cut was in durable goods. Right. Maybe that's weather related. I can't tell, and I don't know. But I think the important thing here is there was a lot of enthusiasm about the economy, a lot of optimism toward the end of last year. We had 2 good quarters. The third quarter, the fourth quarter came in much stronger than people expected. There was a lot of optimism. I think these numbers at base are saying to us this economy is still growing very slowly. All the things that have held it back throughout this whole recovery are still in place. Don't get ahead of yourself.
We're still really challenged on jobs, and Janet Yellen spoke about that a little bit this morning. She says the goal is still, quote, full employment. How are they defining full employment? Because she was quick to point out they don't define it by 6.5% unemployment rate. How do they define full employment, and can we get there?
I don't know how they are defining full employment. They've changed it several times. It used to be about 5.5%. Then there were some numbers that were lower. Now we're talking about higher. I don't think anyone really has a fix on this. I think what the Fed wants is to return, this is just a guess because I'm not invited to their meetings and she never answers my emails, but my guess is that what the Fed wants is to get the jobs back that were lost in the former recession, so that we are no longer employing less people than we were in 2007.
So how much of that jobs number then will factor in come the March tapering?
Right now, the Fed seems determined to continue the tapering, and I think they will do that. If the jobs numbers are extremely disappointing, they can blame the weather for some of it, but if they continue that way, then the Fed may pause in the tapering. But I think it's interesting, the Fed is seeing the money numbers starting to grow, which means that perhaps some of this liquidity is filtering through to the economy. A report was prepared by the FOMC last December that said that the tapering was ineffective. So they may say, we're not really doing much good here, and we are taking some risk.
Right.
Why not get out of it?
You know, with pent-up demand, we could be looking at a quarter, next quarter, with very favorable comparables to this quarter, potentially.
We could in some respects. The thing is that there has been a large accumulation of inventories that business will want to sell off, and that will dampen the numbers, the aggregate numbers.
Okay. Milton Ezrati, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, the rising crime rate in cyberspace and what businesses and people can do to protect themselves. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Arise News is a different kind of network. We are able to tell our own stories, and we're able to cover stories in a way that other media outlets don't do. We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well. Arise News is a place where we can tell stories in an interesting, factual, inclusive way like no one else in the business can.
Ever-present cyber attacks cost companies billions of dollars each year, and experts say it's going to get worse before it gets any better. That's because they say cyber criminals are highly sophisticated, constantly finding new ways to steal companies' valuable information. And the problem is no longer just an IT problem, but a business-wide challenge. Cybersecurity expert and CanWe Studio CEO Tamara Combs joins us now from New Orleans. Tamara, thank you and welcome to Arise Exchange again.
Thank you.
All right,
it's good to be here.
So we have been hearing a tremendous amount about cyber attacks on Target, on government attacks from maybe China, et cetera. Where do we stand right now in the picture of cybersecurity? How risky is everything we do online?
It's a great question. Verizon actually put out a report that said the bad guys are winning. But what's really happening is it just seems like there's no end to these data breaches, right? We had the retailers during the holidays. We had the hotels and things right after the holidays as well. And it seems like they just keep coming. But the government has intervened, and companies are actually pushing to have some legislation around this, not too much, but to actually help us protect ourselves.
And we also got the news of the Apple breach, for example, last week, which was a significant breach as well.
Yes, absolutely, as well as some universities. The University of Maryland was hacked as well.
So let me ask you something. What can the government do and what should the government do? Because government is just going to pass laws or new regulations, I presume, but somehow we got to stay ahead on the technology front.
Right, and I think what companies are wanting is not for government to start putting rules and legislation in place that will compromise our privacy, because it seems like we have these trade-offs between security and privacy. And but companies are really wanting the government to give some tax incentives to help subsidize the cost of actually protecting our data and being the anti-hacker. So they're looking for some concessions.
So they're looking. Do you think, from what you understand, those concessions are going to come? Basically, they need to be incentivized to create these programs.
They do, and some people argue that it's the cost of doing business, right? You have to protect data if you're going to collect data. And I agree with that to some point, but I also believe that there is something that the government could do, because cybersecurity is all of our problem, as we're seeing now, as consumer victims and company victims.
You know, Tamara, in law enforcement, of course, the government provides a variety of tools to combat physical theft, for example, and they do have laws, of course, against cyber theft, but I'm wondering if the government can actually physically do more on a security front, meaning can the government fund some of these programs? Can the government's law enforcement agencies be more active?
Yes, and their law enforcement organizations they're involved and they're active. But yes, I believe there's something that the government can do to help bring together people who are the anti-hackers, so that we can safely share information and share about threats and things like that, so that companies are able to get this information. I know that there are a lot of private companies that are doing this on their own, and I applaud them, because it's no longer, we can't put these walls up and say, I'm going to keep this information to myself and for my company. We have to start sharing information about threats, because a threat to one is a threat to all.
Tamara, let me ask you this. For the companies out there that are offering consumers, companies like LifeLock, consumers, some sort of digital protection, are those legitimate things that people should be looking for? Are those companies helpful?
They are helpful, and in fact, Target is paying for some consumer protection for people who were affected by their data breach. And so I think a lot of individuals have not taken advantage of that. If you were indeed one of the victims of the Target hacker, you think you were involved in the breach, you should absolutely call up and get that credit monitoring and get some protection on your credit. But yes, those LifeLock systems and things like that, the programs, they are legitimate, and I strongly advise, especially in the wake of all the things that are happening today.
Okay, Tamara Combs, some fantastic advice there from Can We Studios. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Time now for our business ticker. South Africa's currency has taken a beating amid the latest round of emerging market turmoil. But the country's president, Jacob Zuma, told CNBC today that the U.S. dollar was to blame for the rand's current weakness.
It's not because of our currency. It's because of the dollar, really. The dollar, that is the key controlling currency in the world. Once the dollar is in problems, many currencies are in problems. So it's difficult to say we cannot move this direction or that one. You know for a fact that the fact that we have the economic meltdown was because of the dollar. It was not because of any other. Once the dollar was in trouble, that impacted to all of us.
The South African rand, which lost 18% last year, fell again to a 5-year low in January, despite the South African Central Bank hiking rates. Lawmakers are considering banning Bitcoin in the U.S. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin is calling on federal regulators, including U.S. Secretary of Treasury Jack Lew and Fed Chair Janet Yellen, to take action against what he calls, quote, a dangerous currency from harming working Americans. Seriously, I don't know how a digital currency can be dangerous. It's not, on a rampage or anything. Manchin argues that the virtual currency is widely volatile. Its anonymity makes the currency susceptible to hackers and theft, as well as a haven for criminals who seek to hide their actions from the law. Manchin's call comes on the heels of Mt. Gox's apparent collapse, which is one of the most well-known Bitcoin exchanges. Yellen told senators today, though, that the Fed may not have jurisdiction over Bitcoin. Tesla may like Texas, after all. The state currently doesn't allow Tesla to sell its cars there because of franchise laws. But that could change because Tesla is talking about building the world's largest battery factory in the Lone Star State. The so-called Gigafactory will cost up to $5 billion and employ more than 6,000 people. Other sites the electric car maker is considering are in Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. It's not entirely clear that the building of the factory is tied to Texas changing its laws. Whatever the location, construction will start this year and be completed in 2017. The First Lady unveiled the Food and Drug Administration's newly proposed food labels today. The changes would increase average serving sizes on the labels to reflect what Americans actually eat and make calorie counts more prominent. Manufacturers will have to disclose how much extra sugar they have added into natural food products and display warnings about excessive salt content. And there will also be more of a focus on minerals and vitamins by displaying their daily values. FDA officials have acknowledged they expect a pushback from the food industry over the proposed changes. So no Bitcoins and no bad food for you either, according to the government. It's a debate that's been going on for years, the true value in getting a college education. For many students and parents, the burden of spending 4 years in college and then being in debt for decades is overwhelming, and some critics say it's just not worth it. Here to make dollars and cents of it all, we welcome collegeplanningGuru.com founder and president Andy Lockwood. Andy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let me ask you something. When someone is buying a college education, what is the true cost of that college education? What are the costs that's going into that number these days?
Well, you've got tuition, which is a big component, but you've also got all these indirect costs, such as room and board. You've got other sorts of expenses like insurance and those types of things.
And so why is tuition on such the increase? Are college professors getting paid more? Is the property costing more? Because we've seen huge hikes across the board in tuition.
Right. There's a couple of components to it. The first one is many people feel it's the third-party payer system, meaning that the government is lending all this money to give access to low-income families, but in effect, that money is being used by the colleges to continue to increase. They continue to increase their costs. So,
and so, because to some extent, the consumers who are going to use the service aren't paying for it themselves.
Right, directly.
And because of that, directly, the schools feel that they could increase the costs on government.
Yeah, that's one aspect of it.
On the universities.
On the universities, right. And the other aspect of it is they're engaged in this sort of arms race with amenities to country clubify the colleges up. So.
Well, it's interesting to say that because I went back to my alma mater, Hofstra University. When I was there, the food was fine. It was a big, main cafeteria that you went to. You go there today, it's a food court. There's a Sbarro, and there's this, and there's that, and they'll cook you sushi.
Right.
And it's great. I wish I, was back in school.
Right. Yeah. There's no more.
But that's costing something.
There's no more. It's not free. There's no more mystery meat. There's no more bug juice. It's skirt steak. It's vegan. It's gluten-free. You've got dorms that are now residences because they have granite countertop and flat panel TV. And these are amenities that these colleges are building, $15 million aquatic facilities and athletic facilities to lure high-paying affluent families.
Okay, so you help advise families on paying for college.
How to avoid overpaying.
And how to avoid overpaying. So to walk us through that a little bit, what are the key tips that you tell them to avoid overpaying?
Okay, great. So there's a few components to it. The first one is, what pond do you fish in? Meaning that some schools are more generous than others. So it really matters, which ones you select. The second aspect of it is, well, what do you do to get in? So now what's happening is there's so many kids who are graduating schools, and they're all taking tons of AP classes and other advanced, coursework and other activities. They all kind of look the same on paper. So what you need to do is distinguish yourself in order to get in. It's fundamentally a marketing issue. And the third thing is understanding the loopholes in the financial aid system. So if you have money saved in your child's name, for example, that is sound financial advice, but it can kill you in the financial aid formulas because it counts against you 400% more than if you had it saved in your own name. And some assets don't count against you at all.
So where do you fit in, or where do you come down on whether college is worth it or not? Because you made an interesting statement, I was reading, that the gap between college graduates and what they earn and non-graduates is closing. Then I imagine if you factor in and amortize the cost of college, you may be on the losing side of the equation.
This is probably ironic and not a great business model for a college consultant to say this, but I'll tell you, my wife and I, Pearl, we own the business. We see everyone's tax returns. We have doctors, lawyers, accountants as clients. We have auto body guys, electricians, and plumbers. More often than not, it's that second category, who may not have even gone to college at all, that is doing better in terms of how much wealth they have amassed. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to college. I just question whether everyone
And
should
in
go.
fairness, those people, though, may have had a better secondary education in high school, correct? It's correct to say that, or we don't know?
Arguable. I mean, it doesn't, it just, they're oriented differently. But I can tell you that there's a lot of people who have college degrees that don't really need them. There are 115,000 custodians with BAs in the country. You know, there's all these crazy statistics like that.
Look, I have a law degree. I've never seen the inside of a courthouse. So I don't know.
I have a law degree also. I'm a recovering attorney.
We both are. Andy Lockwood, thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Ahead, the queen of comfort food compared herself to a gay football player. Our favorite person of the day is next. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Well, Arise is the only network that really covers comprehensively the African diaspora. It gives people in other parts of the world of color a chance to know about people here in the United States, us to know about them, and the world to know about us. So it's kind of an educational experience for everybody involved. Getting to know people through stories, through personal stories. You really get a chance to know what people are actually all about, what communities are about. How are we different? But more importantly, what commonalities we all share.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, that person is once again Paula Deen, for somehow comparing herself to, quote, that black gay football player. Deen is on the cover of People magazine as part of a story of her comeback from a series of racist remarks that came to light during a lawsuit last year. But she still seems to say all the wrong things. Deen, who is known for her high-fat home cooking recipes, says she's fighting to get her good name back and that she would never hurt anyone intentionally. So, to that end, Deen compared herself to college football player Michael Sam, who recently announced he was gay. Deen said, quote, "It's like that black football player who recently came out." She went on to say, quote, "I just want to be known as a football player. I don't want to be known as a gay football player." Funny, we didn't think Deen was a black, gay, or a football player. Deen also complained that the star of Duck Dynasty, Phil Robertson, got better treatment than she did when he made derogatory comments about homosexuals, though I also seem to recall he didn't exactly get a free pass. Thankfully, Paula Deen is on the comeback trail, so we could talk about her some more. And so, Paula Deen, for not being a black, gay football player, is our favorite person of the day. Next, the sweet music of Live Nation, how one company has struck the right chord in selling concerts. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Arise serves underserved communities by bringing them news, information, sports, and entertainment from places that are becoming part of the world economy, that are becoming a part of the world voice, and decisions that are affecting things in the world that people care about. They care about the economy. They care about safety and security. And if you come to Arise and you watch our broadcast, these are the things we're going to bring to you every day, 24 hours a day.
One of the great things about Arise Entertainment 360 is we have this Arise to Your Health segment, which really focuses on the holistic approach of being healthy. So we do everything from working out to juicing to getting in shape by doing fun exercises like bouncing on a trampoline or wearing these bouncy boots on our feet when we're jumping all over the set. We've done karate, we've danced the weight off, we've done just about everything. And of course, I love when we eat on set, but we do it in a very healthy and clean way.
Welcome back to Exchange. Concert sales are making a comeback in the United States, soaring to $4.5 billion in 2013. This is good news for the industry after dismal sales totals in previous years. Promoter and Ticketmaster owner Live Nation had a record year in sales, and the company's senior regional vice president, Jason Stone, joins us now to talk to us about how Live Nation is pulling it off. Jason, welcome to Arise Exchange.
Thank you.
Let me ask you something. I'm kind of fascinated. Which are the kind of hot concerts now? Which genre of music is doing really well?
I think that if you look at the hottest stuff we find right now, the electronic dance music, EDM as we call it, is a huge area of concentration, as well as country music. Country music is tremendous growth.
And it's growth not just in traditional country music areas, correct?
Correct. We have found over the years that traditional country music has separated off to this new genre of country music, which are country music superstars, where we build huge shows around them and tour the country in the largest of buildings that we have.
Do you have a particular audience that is most profitable for you? I imagine country music stars are older people, maybe, concerts, while the electric music is younger. And is there a difference in what you could charge in prices?
Well, I think that it's all genre related. If you're naturally marketing to a younger audience base, your pricing is going to be more sensitive to that, and they don't have as much expendable income, so naturally it's going to be a cheaper ticket. When we go into a country music audience, although it's not necessarily an older audience, not these days anyway, but because of the expense of producing a larger show like that, it just naturally adds a little bit more to the ticket price.
What is driving the sort of comeback that we saw last year? The economy was a little bit better, but are the acts better?
I don't think the acts are better. I think the acts are always great. I think the fan base is there for all genres of music, and it doesn't matter what level of music we're doing. I think the fans, it's all about the fans. It always goes back to the fan. If the fan is there and wants to support their artist, whether it's because of more exposure due to television shows like The Voice that have Blake Shelton, for instance. Naturally, Blake Shelton is going to be a bigger star because he's exposed to a much larger audience.
Well, I'm actually wondering about that with all the reality shows and with all the stars out there. That has got to be helping drive sales. And is it doing better than driving, traditionally radio drove concert sales, didn't it?
Yes, I think radio is still a very important genre because I think the basic fan reaches out to both satellite and terrestrial radio for their music. There are so many more sources for them to reach out to. Artists that have wonderful websites, for instance, and deliver the music through their individual websites is another area. Also, you look at the music services that are out there now, like the Spotify's, where you can go and set yourself up a website for your favorite artist and be able to listen to that music.
Does that help detract from concert sales at all, or are people still wanting to go see these performers live?
I think we say it Live Nation and have for many years. It's better live, and we really believe that.
That's your business.
we just believe that. I don't think it detracts at all. I think the music is there, live or otherwise, for the fan.
Let me ask you about ticket prices. The controversy is that Live Nation and Ticketmasters has been pushing up ticket prices because you're controlling so much of the market, not just in the music concert areas, but in the sports arena as well. And the tickets are expensive. You're pricing out some families. I mean, what can you do? Do you think the tickets are too expensive? And what can you do to bring them down?
Most of the public's not aware. The ticket price is dictated by the expense of producing the show. We do not price a ticket based on a price range that we think the audience will pay. We back into a ticket price in every situation. We look at very simply what are the costs to produce these multi-billion-dollar shows. We just simply break that back down to the local marketplace, the amount of available seats, and that's what dictates the ticket price. Live Nation is not necessarily, nor is any promoter, getting rich on the ticket price.
And talk about a little bit about the importance now of the online marketplace to driving concert sales, where it used to be that you had to call up or you had to go to the arena to buy the tickets. This has got to be a game changer.
Yes. Well, we believe, first of all, the social marketing aspect of concerts is almost now tantamount to the traditional print and radio advertising. But we are marketing socially through the websites of Facebook and otherwise. Those customers are going automatically with a click of a button right onto the online services to buy the ticket.
Are you finding that parents are going with their kids more often now to concerts?
Sure, especially when it comes to the classic rock artists, which we do a huge business with. The parents would love to bring their children in and do bring their children to show them what they experienced 20, 30 years ago.
Let me ask you about Billy Joel. He is sort of the artist in residence now at Madison Square Garden. Are we going to see more artists doing that? And by the way, I don't know how he's doing. You can maybe fill us in on how his sales are going. But are we going to see more of these classic rock artists maybe setting up permanent residency?
Well, we've done many residencies, as our competition has done many residencies. We have Santana, for instance, in residency at the House of Blues in Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas for a whole year last year, and we just renewed the deal again. The Billy Joel piece is unique. He's one of the great international superstars of our time. and is available to a wide variety of people. So people do bring their children to see that. And by the way, each and every show that gets added to that residency sells out. It's just a matter of days, and they add another one. I think they're up to the 12th one now.
He's an absolutely amazing performer.
Amazing
and now more people can see him because of this. Jason
Correct.
Stone, Vice President with Live Nation. Appreciate it. Fascinating topic. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for stopping by. Coming up later on in Arise Exchange this week, the business of Oscars. The annual Academy Awards brings in big bucks for Hollywood each year. We'll explore where the money is going and who really the winners are. Let's take a look at the closing numbers on Wall Street after Janet Yellen testified this morning. The markets moved forward, up 73 points for the Dow Jones Industrial Average to 16,272. Green arrows for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ as well. Julian Phillips will be in for me tomorrow. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching.